let's talk about MSNBC because the leftist network owned by NBC Universal is rebranding to MS Now, an acronym that stands for My Source for News, Opinion and the World.
That's awful. Doesn't sound like the call letters for a cable news channel. At best, it sounds like maybe like they're in menopause now. I don't know, like PMS or like some sort of lady condition that they have.
Trying to peel off its rotten skin of lies and spin, only to slap on a shinier disguise. But most see it as the same corrupt network, in a new costume, and one of the loudest voices calling it out is Megyn Kelly, who dropped a scorching takedown of the whole charade. Trust me, it was pure fire. So smash that subscribe button, and let's dive in.
How exciting is this new branding for the left-wing cable channel that even the parent company don't want anymore? MSNBC is now going to be called MS Now.
It sounds like they've caught a terrible disease, like right now. I'm so sorry. Oh my God, it's a diagnosis they've received. That's awful. Doesn't sound like the call letters for a cable news channel. At best, it sounds like maybe like they're in menopause now. I don't know, like PMS or like some sort of lady condition that they have.
It's fascinating to watch what's happening to leftist media outlets these days. First, it was 60 Minutes forced into a humiliating settlement after Trump took them to court and won. Then came Stephen Colbert act from late night TV after drowning in miserable ratings. And now the spotlight is on MSNBC, stumbling through a so-called rebrand that fools absolutely no one. The pattern is clear. These once powerful media giants are collapsing under the weight of their own obsession. They've spent years milking Trump hate for clicks and applause, but now the well has run dry with no fresh outrage to feed their woke audience. Their credibility and relevance are evaporating faster than they can spin. The headlines: 3.
It's happening right now. You need to tune in to see what Rachel Maddow is going through. I don't know how they settled on those terrible initials. Or like, is it some feminist mantra like Ms. M.S. period. Now it's all about the ladies. This is our moment. However you slice it, it's a disaster. And they still haven't solved the basic problem that they have more letters in their call name than they do viewers. And the rebrand is not going to help.
MSNBC's flashy new name MS Now sounds less like a serious news outlet and more like a Saturday morning cartoon or the latest sports talk show on ESPN. Instead of projecting credibility, the rebrand screams desperation, like a network grasping at straws to stay relevant. The problem: nobody's buying it. The new name doesn't resonate with viewers, and, in fact, it only highlights how out of touch the network has become. Rebranding is supposed to inject fresh energy, rebuild trust, and spark curiosity. Instead, MS looks like a clumsy paint job over the same broken machine. People know the product hasn't changed. Same bias, same spin, same tired talking points. It's lipstick on a pig, and audiences can smell it from miles away. If MSNBC thought a simple name tweak would fix their credibility crisis, they've underestimated just how little faith viewers still have left.
It's a bloodbath over on MSNBC and CNN. MSNBC, now the numbers are out on the latest Nielsen data reported by Adweek, now averaging between April and June, okay, so that's a quarter, 1 million in the prime time for its best shows. 1 million. All right, I mean, when I was at Fox, we were doing like 3 million and change on the Kelly File. And then on the big news nights, you could add a couple of extra million to that. Like 1 million? That's what I used to get on America's Newsroom with Hemmer in 2007 at 9 a.m.
Frankly, I'm not surprised. When you build your business model on alienating half the country, failure is inevitable. CNN and MSNBC made it their mission to be as anti-Trump as possible, not just reporting the news, but actively waging war against him. Every minor story about the former Republican candidate was blown out of proportion, twisted, and turned into wall-to-wall hysteria. They weren't informing Americans. They were indoctrinating them. And in the process, they insulted, mocked, and dismissed the tens of millions who supported him. That's not journalism. That's activism, disguised as reporting. By choosing partisanship over fairness, these networks didn't just attack Trump. They alienated half the nation. Now, as their ratings continue to nosedive and trust evaporates, they're reaping what they sowed. The American people are done being gaslighted, and they turned the channel for good.
But now they're getting 1 million in the prime time. Prime time. Any show on the Fox News prime time that would, even today, especially because now, it's inflated under Trump at Fox, that was getting 1 million in the prime time, you get fired. The anchor would get fired. Okay, and in the key demo of 25 to 54, MSNBC is averaging under 100,000. 91,000.
Megyn Kelly is absolutely right, Annie. Serious network facing a ratings crisis of this magnitude would have already cleaned house and replaced at least its prime time lineup. Yet MSNBC continues to cling to the very hosts who've driven the channel into the ground. Instead of taking accountability, they double down on the same tired voices: Rachel Maddow, Joe Scarborough, and the rest of the echo chamber, hoping viewers won't notice the decline. But audiences aren't stupid. They've already tuned out in droves. Contrast that with CBS, which had no problem asking Stephen Colbert once his ratings tanked. When you can't deliver numbers, you're shown the door. That's how real media companies operate. But MSNBC, they'd rather protect their ideological darlings than face reality. The result is predictable: plummeting credibility, shrinking viewership, and a brand that become more punchline than powerhouse. Kelly just said out loud what everyone already knows.
A fall from year over year of 15% in the overall and 20% in the demo, which is kind of interesting. I would have thought it would have been a bigger fall given that this time last year was the lead up to the election. All right, I'm not done. Even worse is in the day on MSNBC. Total viewership plummeting 26%, an average during the day of 596,000, so under 600,000 viewers on your average MSNBC daily show, and 57,000 in the key demo. Under 50,000 is slashies. They don't even give you the number. You don't know what you got under 50,000. You just know you got slashies, which means you are a loser. That's really what that means. Double L for loser.
At this rate, it's hard to imagine MSNBC's rebranding having any real impact, because the numbers are simply abysmal. The ratings don't just reflect a struggling network. They mirror the broader identity crisis gripping the Democratic Party itself. MSNBC has long served as the party's media arm, parroting talking points and running cover. But now, both seem to be stumbling at the same time. Viewers have tuned out, trust has collapsed, and the so-called rebrand looks more like a desperate cry for relevance than a genuine reset. And here's a bigger problem. If MSNBC, with all its resources, can't capture the public's attention anymore, what does that say about the political movement it represents? If the same patterns of denial, spin, and arrogance continue, both the network and the party it echoes might face the same fate: irrelevance, or worse, extinction.
Let me do CNN. They're in last place. They're lower than MSNBC. How can you go lower? So I'm ripping on MSNBC for having 1 million averaging in the prime time. Guess what CNN's average is in the prime time? 538,000 in the overall.
CNN's ratings are even worse than MSNBC's, which is saying a lot. At this rate, it's becoming clearer by the day. No one takes on Donald Trump and comes out on top. These networks spent years turning their coverage into a crusade against him, weaponizing every headline, every scandal, every rumor. And what did it get them? Empty chairs, plummeting ad revenue, and a credibility crisis they can't shake. I'd even go as far as to say the so-called woke war is effectively over. The audience isn't buying it anymore. People have grown tired of being lectured, gaslighted, and fed hysteria disguised as news. The woke mob media outlets can shout as loudly as they want, but nobody seems interested in listening. If ratings are the scoreboard, then the verdict is already in. Trump won. And CNN and MSNBC are bleeding out in defeat.
Let's talk about MSNBC because the leftist network owned by NBC Universal is rebranding to MS Now, an acronym that stands for My Source for News, Opinion and the World. MSNBC is getting mocked for this online. You know, you can't really take MSNBC seriously. What do you make of the rebrand? Is it going to help them at all? Is it an attempt to try and boost their ratings?
And she's not wrong. The backlash has been brutal, with people across the internet tearing the network apart for its laughable new name. Some joke that MS sounds more like a disease than a trusted news source, while others say it feels like the network has completely lost its grip on relevance. Instead of sparking excitement, the rebrand has turned MSNBC into the punchline of a national joke. Meme after meme, tweet after tweet, the mockery is endless, and it keeps snowballing. What was meant to project strength and freshness has only highlighted weakness and desperation. Audiences see through the gimmick, recognizing it as a cheap attempt to cover up years of tanking ratings and credibility loss. If anything, the new name hasn't revived the network. It's buried it deeper in ridicule, proving once again that branding can't save bad journalism.
It's not going to help at all. And Rachel Maddow and Joe Scarborough are trying to say, oh, the new logo looks cool, but it doesn't have the legendary NBC peacock, which is, you know, it gave them all the credibility that they had, which was none. And what's very intriguing about this situation, though, is that MSNBC changed to MS Now, but CNBC gets to stay CNBC. So it just shows you that MSNBC has been so unsuccessful that NBC wants to, you know, disconnect any way possible with that failing ship, that sinking ship.
Joe Scarborough and Rachel Maddow must be kicking themselves right now as they watch their cable news network slide further down the pecking order. These two aren't just familiar faces on MSNBC. They are the poster children for everything wrong with the channel. For years, Scarborough and Maddow have twisted the news to fit their narratives, buried inconvenient facts, and gaslighted the American public with selective outrage. They've turned journalism into performance art, where truth takes a backseat to ideology. And let's be honest, they've been front and center in the culture war to push America further into the depths of woke politics. Instead of being trusted anchors, they've become activists with teleprompters. Now, as MSNBC desperately rebrands in a last-ditch attempt to salvage credibility, the decline of its two flagship star stands as the clearest evidence yet. The network is running out of both time and trust. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is making giant strides on the international scene.
US President Donald Trump has arranged a meeting between Russia's President Vladimir Putin and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky that is set to take place within 2 weeks. What a major development and step forward in bringing this horrific war to an end. Now, President Trump hosted Zelensky and European leaders at the White House today, and the president is optimistic that peace is within reach.
While MSNBC and CNN's ratings continue their free fall, President Trump's international image has received a major boost as he brokers what could be a historic meeting between Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky, an effort aimed at ending the war. This is no small feat, especially considering that both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris made their attempts to bring the two sides together and failed miserably. Trump, the man they've smeared for years as reckless and unfit, is now the one pushing diplomacy forward where the so-called professionals couldn't deliver. And here's the kicker. This very story will serve as a litmus test for the newly branded Ms. Now, will they cover it fairly, or will they bury it like they've done with every Trump win? If history is any guide, don't hold your breath. A name change can't fix a network still addicted to bias. In the end, the writing is on the wall. CNN and MSNBC can rebrand, reshuffle, or spin their way through the crisis, but the audience has moved on. Their war on Trump backfired. Their obsession with woke politics alienated millions, and their credibility is gone. Ratings don't lie. Americans are done with activist news. What we're watching isn't reinvention. It's slow motion extinction. And this brings us to the end of today's video.